This weekend is particularly rich in grace. We have quite a rare occurrence. A very young man has just been placed on the altar. Carlo was born in London, but his parents were from the north of Italy, and he died after a very swift and severe illness, leukemia, at the age of 15, having conquered the cybersphere with nearly miraculous means. Already at the age of 9, he knew exactly how to get into a computer and very quickly could do very high-powered programming. And experts say that he was able to get the feel of the whole campus of computer work in a way that it surpassed even the experts, because he knew what a computer could do. And he used it for God. He used it especially for what this gospel is talking about, the banquet. And he saw the Blessed Sacrament as the center of it all. He was authorized to receive communion before the time in the area where he was. Already at 7, he knew exactly what he was doing, and he would go to Holy Mass every day, even as a child. He was on fire for Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. He was a complete young man and had very good friends. In school, he was sent to a very high-powered school run by Jesuits, competitive. He was not one of those who excluded others to get to the first place, but gave time to them to help them. And he was appreciated by his companions. He wasn't one of those who was, as it were, so holy that he could not be approached. He was complete. He was also a magnet. And he had an intuition that the Blessed Sacrament had to be enthroned on earth, given its due place and understood for what it was. And therefore, he followed the inspiration of the Holy Spirit to put together a massive operation of scientific research on all the traces of the miraculous in the field of the Blessed Sacrament in history. To make, first of all, virtually and then concretely, a huge, well-documented and very well put together, on every level, exhibition of Eucharistic miracles from the beginning of time. And they're ongoing, as you know. So this went round the cybersphere and also around the world in concrete terms. The exhibition, it's been going around different countries of the world. He only had one woman in his life, the Blessed Virgin. One can imagine that he would have become a very holy priest had he lived. But he's a model for all the young people of the world. One is here only a long time. A short time, but one is going to be a long time on the other side. And one thinks of the many who at the age of 15 have already made a mess of it. I think the kind of thing I mean is obvious. Drugs, pleasure, rebellion, and even by now often ending it all in suicide. Whereas this model is an alternative. Now, I want to go into specifically what he was very much aware of. If the Blessed Sacrament is so great, it demands the greatest response and preparation on our part. And one of the things precisely that we're warned about in this Gospel is the unpreparedness of the soul. This soul that arrives at the banquet not prepared. Now that actually starts off by being physical, the wedding garment, and that also is not indifferent. One even dresses well to come into the high court of the king. It's a sign of respect. Traditionally, on Sundays, people dress up, not down. It's something which is not indifferent. If you have an assembly where physically the Lord is honoured, it gives that extra atmosphere. People who come shoddily dressed with more of the same are not doing anything particular, one extra bit being fitted in when they're ready for the next thing for which they're dressed. But the soul is the temple that has to be dressed. The other is an expression of it. And this I want to zoom into in something which somebody has given me, which I was aware of and which I found very helpful. It's the element of preparation of the soul for the encounter. It concerns us because that also is both physical and spiritual, and one is the expression of the other. This mystic, Catalina, is still alive in Colombia, and she's been given many things which can help us. We have the fact that she's actually coming in sweat and not calm. It's not a good way. The physical impacts on the soul. An empty body, fasting, in the calm of night is far more receptive than somebody coming in just in time to be late, all out of breath. Now, she hears this voice. The Blessed Virgin is talking to her at the beginning. From the bottom of your heart, ask the Lord to forgive your faults that have offended him. In this way, you will be able to participate worthily in this privilege of assisting at the Holy Mass. Now, this is the penitential rite, and she dismisses that mentally. And this answer comes back from the Blessed Virgin. Do you think that since last night you have not offended the Lord? Let me remind you of a few things. When you left to come here, the girl who helps you approached you to ask you for something, and as you were late and in a hurry, of disposition of soul, damaged already, you did not answer her in a very nice way. There was a lack of charity on your part, and you say, you have not offended God. Then, while on the way here, a bus crossed over your lane and almost hit you. You expressed yourself in a very non-advisable way against that poor man. Instead of saying your prayers and preparing yourself for Mass. Now that actually was picked up by the Curé Vaz. He was giving Holy Communion one Sunday morning, and this lady was at the altar rails, and he was hesitant about giving her the Blessed Sacrament. And she had been wanting to get there at all costs. That was a good thing. But the Holy Curé Vaz knew that she had whizzed there and not said her morning prayers, and knowing it, he said it to her. Do you think you're ready to receive the Lord without having said your morning prayers? Now we have people who don't even bother to keep the very minimum of an hour from solid food before Holy Mass. This minimalism shows where we're at. On it goes. And there is this reminder that getting there in good time is wanted by heaven. I skip the very rich teaching given by heaven, including teaching on the presence of angels and our Blessed Lady herself at the altar. Remember that, little people. What goes on at the altar is invisible as well as visible. And we come here to the moment of receiving the Lord. Wait a moment. The Lord himself says here, I want you to observe something. She notices the difference in people who have been to confession recently and those who haven't. Those who are completely cleansed receive the maximum of grace, especially if they do so in the physical way wanted. But then she hears this. This is why I want to pause here. It might concern each one of us if we're honest. First of all, the good example. This is how I myself rejoice in embracing a soul, notice that, who comes with a clean heart to receive me. So the Lord's tone of voice was that of a happy person, but then he becomes sad. The Last Supper was the moment of the greatest intimacy with my own. During that hour of love, I established what could be thought of as the greatest act of lunacy in the eyes of men, that of making myself a prisoner of love. But then he goes on to explain how in fact he's treated. He allows this person right in front of her, who's just received the Blessed Sacrament, to be heard in her mental prayer. She has just received the Lord, and at that point the Lord opens the ears of the soul of this mystic to hear what's going on right in front of her in her prayer. She has just received the Lord, and what happens? Without a stop, she gives a big list of petitions, in itself a noble act, but the Lord is pointing out and says so. This is not what he had in mind in instituting this moment of intimacy. He wanted the heart and attention of his beloved, and this is how he was treated. He was being treated as a way of getting things. Now, if we're honest, that could be our case as well. Do we know how just to console Jesus by doing one thing alone initially? Feeling him, looking at him, and loving him. I'll leave it with that, my friends, because otherwise we're missing the point.